Early in the morning, the elevator at Lumen Row Analytics smelled like fresh ambition and old carpets. I stepped out in my navy suit, the one that made me look like I had a lawyer on retainer. I was 26, a senior analyst with a shelf of awards and a promotion that had been promised so often it felt like a company slogan. Last year, my manager, Kent, said it plainly: "Keep delivering and you will move into associate director." I delivered. I built dashboards that turned chaos into decisions. I trained new hires. I rescued client escalations without making anyone look foolish. The firm tossed me plaques and shoutouts, like confetti that never quite became cash. Then my aunt died. She was the family hinge, the one who kept documents organized and people calm. Her passing shook our home like a filing cabinet tipping over. I took PTO for 10 days, because grief does not fit into a lunch break. I handled logistics, insurance calls, account lists, deed copies. I watched my cousin Jessa nearly sign a contract with a probate vendor, charging a percentage like it was a tip. I stopped her, and we read the fine print together, line by line. That week taught me a blunt rule: if it is not written, it is not real. When I returned, my inbox had multiplied. I cleared the backlog and still hit my quarterly targets. 2 weeks later, I even won an internal award for client impact. Kent clapped and said, "See, resilience." I believed the promotion was still on the table. Review season arrived. I walked into the conference room with a binder, not a smile. My binder held metrics: revenue influenced, churn prevented, cycle time reduced, plus screenshots and meeting notes. I called the folder proof, because I had learned from estate planning that documentation is love with legal teeth. Kent sat across from me, fingers steepled. He slid a sheet forward. Overall rating: meets expectations. My jaw stayed polite while my brain did cartwheels. Meets expectations, I repeated. I delivered the highest renewal lift in our segment. He nodded with sympathy that sounded rehearsed. The quarter was uneven. You were out for a while. We needed consistent visibility. Visibility. A word that means obedience with better lighting. I opened my binder and placed a chart between us. I hit every KPI. The PTO is documented, and coverage was planned. Here are client notes and peer feedback. Kent did not look at the chart. He looked at me. "This is calibration," he said. "We align ratings across managers." I advocated, but the panel had concerns. The panel, the mythical creature that always agrees with budget. He continued, "Your raise will be 50 cents an hour. Promotion is deferred. 50 cents. I almost laughed, because the alternative was to flip the table. I kept my voice level. I was promised a promotion. "Promises are not contracts," he said. "Keep your head down. Next cycle, we revisit." Translation: stop keeping records. I walked out with my binder and my dignity. In my car, I opened my banking app. Emergency fund, 8 months of expenses. I had built it quietly, automated transfers like a second spine. In that moment, I understood the fund was not just money, it was leverage. That night I called Jessa. She picked up tired. I told her what happened. She made a sound like a kettle boiling. "They punished you for grief," she said. "They tried," I said. "Now I get strategic." Inside the building, I watched coworkers glide past with lanyards and latte foam, talking about synergy like it was a vitamin. I smiled back, because anger is best served cold and organized. In my head, I began listing assets: my skills, my network, my savings, my documentation. Kent had a title. I had options. Sometime in the late afternoon, I opened a new folder and named it Calibration Defense. It sat beside proof, like its sharper sister. My revenge would not be loud, it would be documented. At Lumen Row, calibration was a closed-door ritual. Managers compared ratings, adjusted them to fit a budget, and called it fairness. The trick was narrative. Metrics helped, but narrative decided. Kent had turned my 10 days of PTO into a story about leadership gaps, and the room had nodded. So I built a counterstory. First, I wrote impact statements for every project, not duties, outcomes, specific, measurable, attributable. Reduced reporting cycle by 30%, freeing 2 analysts. Flagged renewal risks, preserving 1.2 million in annual revenue. Prevented a compliance issue by fixing data retention. I saved screenshots with timestamps and meeting notes with names. I stopped letting my work live only in other people's memories. Second, I gathered peer endorsements early. I asked 3 partners, Rosa from Sales Ops, Mina from Legal, and Ivy from Client Success, for 2 sentences on outcomes they observed. I framed it as governance. I am building a cross-functional record for my development file. Their notes were clear and warm. Mina mentioned I had caught a contract clause that would have increased client liability. When legal says liability, executives listen. Third, I reduced dependence quietly. Financial first. I increased my Freedom Fund transfers and moved a chunk to a separate bank, because exit money should not share a driveway with payroll. Emotional next. I stopped telling Kent my plans. I stopped seeking his approval like it was a KPI. I treated him like a vendor with a shaky service agreement. I also learned the written rules. I read the handbook section on performance management. I saved the PTO policy. PTO is earned compensation, and using it should not become a silent penalty without documented business impact. I checked state guidance on retaliation, not because I wanted a lawsuit, but because knowledge changes posture. A few days later, Kent called me into a one-on-one. I want to help you grow, he said. You should focus on being more present. Present is measurable, I said. Do you mean attendance, responsiveness, or stakeholder satisfaction? His eyes flickered. Do not get defensive. I am precise, I said. If we discuss performance, we should use metrics. After that, I requested a meeting with HR. The HR partner, Dahlia, had calm eyes and a risk manager voice. I said, I want transparency on calibration criteria and how PTO is considered. She nodded carefully. PTO is not protected leave. True, I said, but it is earned. If it is used as a negative factor after a family death, that is a governance problem and a risk. I am asking for the record to reflect objective performance. She asked for documentation. I slid my binder over. Her eyebrows lifted as she read the peer notes. That evening I called Jessa again. Her manager had been pressuring her to delay a life plan for a project launch. She whispered like the phone was bugged. They act like our lives are optional, she said. Your life is the asset, I told her. Protect it like property. Also, build the emergency fund. I have 3 months, she said. Make it 6, I said. Automate it. That is how you buy choices. I also started a habit I call the Friday file. At the end of each week, I wrote 3 lines: what I shipped, what it changed, who saw it. I attached proof. It sounds small, but it builds a timeline you can hand to a recruiter, an ombud's office, or a future you who needs to remember she was not imagining things. Somewhere in the middle of the next quarter, I began looking externally the way a careful woman opens a trust. Quietly, with clean paperwork and no extra witnesses. I did not post cryptic quotes. I updated my resume in private and translated my impact statements into profit language. I treated the search like negotiation. I gathered market data on titles and pay. I set non-negotiables: ethical leadership, a measurable growth path, and compensation that did not treat grief as a defect. My Freedom Fund made my walk-away number real. At work, Kent started handing me assignments that felt like punishment wrapped in opportunity. Fix a broken reporting system. No resources. Short timeline. He called it visibility. I called it bait. I accepted, then set boundaries in writing. I emailed. I can deliver X by Y. assuming access to Zed and support from two stakeholders. If conditions shift, timeline shifts. That email was contract law in miniature. Clarity prevents later blame. Kent replied with something vague. Fine. My record was clear. I also built shared ownership. I asked Rosa to co-present results to leadership. I invited Mina from legal to review reporting terms. Mina found a privacy risk fast. Personal identifiers exported with no retention policy. She looked at me and said, "This is exposure. Risk is the language executives understand." We escalated through proper channels, documented as governance, and compliance thanked us in a department meeting. Kent clapped from the back like he was not sweating. Dahlia from HR scheduled a follow-up. I arrived with fresh data, including rating distribution patterns. I had noticed that people who took longer PTO stretches, often for caregiving or family events, got dinged with subjective notes like visibility, even when metrics were strong. Not a verdict, but a red flag. Dahlia asked whether I wanted to file a formal complaint. I chose a smarter route. Not yet, I said. I want written promotion criteria, a corrected development plan, and calibration notes that include my metrics and peer feedback. I want my record accurate. A formal complaint can turn into a story about conflict. A correction turns into a story about process. Meanwhile, recruiters moved. Sunward Ledger Group reached out, a mid-sized firm with a reputation for clean governance. The role was lead analyst with a path to manager. The pay made my 50-cent raise look like a prank. In interviews, I stayed calm. I spoke about systems, risk reduction, contract awareness, and stakeholder alignment. When asked about a challenge, I referenced my aunt, but as preparation. Losing a family member taught me to keep documentation current, automate savings, and reduce single-point failures. In estates, in teams, in careers. At home, Jessa and I sat at my mother's kitchen table, sorting remaining estate paperwork. My mother poured tea like it could steam away grief. Jessa stared at the documents and said, "I hate how confusing this is. This is why you update beneficiaries and consider a simple trust when it fits," I said. Not to be fancy, to be clear. Clarity is kindness. Jessa glanced at me. What is clarity at work? Written criteria, I said. Metrics folders. Peer endorsements early. And an exit plan. She smiled. You sound like you are about to do something. I am, I said. I am about to stop asking permission. To keep the search quiet, I used personal devices, personal email, and interviews scheduled as routine appointments. I declined any request to share current employer details beyond what was necessary. A job search is like due diligence. You reveal only what the other side has earned. Late one morning, Kent summoned me to his office. The blinds were half closed, the lighting designed for intimidation. He offered a chair like he owned it. I heard you met with HR, he said. I did, I said. He sighed, theatrical. Going around your manager damages trust. Trust is built on accuracy, I said. Calibration should reflect performance. I am ensuring my record is complete. Kent leaned forward. You have potential, but you need to show loyalty. Leadership watches. There it was, the true metric. Loyalty, meaning silence. I opened my notebook. For development, confirm the promotion criteria you shared last year. Which metrics, and how are they weighted against subjective factors like visibility? He frowned. You are overcomplicating. I am clarifying, I said. Like a contract. His jaw tightened at contract. Managers who rely on ambiguity hate contract language. It turns manipulation into math. After that meeting, he began excluding me from calls. The old move, reduce visibility, then blame you for it. I responded with polite documentation. I emailed summaries, requested inclusion on threads, and asked for written rationales when work was reassigned. Every message was professional. Every message was a receipt. Dahlia scheduled a meeting with Kent, me, and a director named Soren. Soren opened with, "We need consistency in our performance process." I laid out my case with numbers. KP is met. Awards earned. Peer endorsements from cross-functional partners. Then I showed the review language. Uneven quarter, inconsistent visibility. I asked one question. What objective evidence supports that narrative? Kent cleared his throat. It is holistic. Soren frowned. Holistic does not mean unanchored. Dahlia added. We reviewed policy. PTO should not be cited as a negative without documented business impact and prior coaching. Soren turned to Kent. Did you provide coaching? Kent mumbled. I pulled up emails. Here are my requests for measurable criteria. Here are the responses. Soren read, then said, We will revise the development plan and ensure calibration notes reflect objective performance and peer input. He did not sound angry. He sounded done. My revenge was a correction that stripped Kent of plausible deniability. Afterward, Kent cornered me near the break room. You are making me look bad, he hissed. Your actions are doing that, I said. He sneered. You think this gets you promoted? I smiled, small and sharp. It gets me free. After the meeting, I sent a recap email to all attendees. It summarized the agreed changes, the metrics reviewed, and next steps. It was polite, brief, and impossible to misquote. Corporate memory is short, email is long. That night I updated my metrics folder again because revenge is maintenance, not a moment. I also stopped volunteering for extra work that only created free labor. I delivered my scope, then protected my evenings like a boundary with a fence. I slept well for once, because clarity is calming. That evening, Sunward Ledger Group called with an offer. Higher salary, real title. A manager named Tamsin whose voice carried calm authority. We reward impact, she said. We measure it. We do not punish people for being human. I asked for the offer in writing. Then I negotiated. I requested a sign-on bonus, a clear promotion timeline, and development funds. I asked about severance terms and non-compete language. No non-compete, only confidentiality. Music. They met me halfway. Negotiation is not aggression, it is alignment. I called Jessa. She squealed, then went quiet. I wish I had your courage, she said. You have it, I said. Build the fund. Build the file. Gather endorsements early. Then choose. Early the next week, I drafted my resignation letter with the same care I used for impact statements. Short, clear, no emotion as currency. I saved a copy at home, not on the company drive. I reviewed my employment agreement, confirmed what belonged to the firm and what belonged to my mind. Proprietary files stayed. My skills came with me. I met with Kent and handed him the letter. I am resigning, effective in 2 weeks, I said. I accepted a role that aligns with my performance and values. His face flushed. You cannot do this now. We have deliverables. I nodded. I will provide a transition plan. That is professional. He tried charm. What if we revisit your promotion sooner? I kept my smile polite. I do not negotiate with people who treat bereavement like a defect. He stiffened. You will regret burning bridges. I am not burning anything, I said. I am walking away from a bridge built on fog. I executed my exit like a lawyer closing a deal. I documented project status, risks, and next steps. I met with stakeholders and ensured continuity so no one could claim I abandoned the team. I transferred knowledge through meetings and written notes. I forwarded no confidential files. I kept receipts. Dahlia requested an exit interview. I agreed, stayed factual, and framed it as governance. Metrics ignored, PTO used as narrative, criteria unclear, exclusion after I requested transparency. I suggested improvements. Require calibration notes to reference objective metrics. Require documented coaching. Collect peer feedback as standard input. Facts travel farther than fury. Soren stopped me in the hallway sometime later. I heard about your new role, he said. Congratulations. Your documentation highlighted process gaps. We are addressing them. That was another quiet revenge. The system would be safer for the next woman. On my last day, Kent arrived late to the farewell meeting, clapped like he was busy, and avoided eye contact. I thanked the team, left my badge on the table, and walked out. In the parking lot, I called my mother. Lighter, I said. Like I sold property with a bad foundation. She laughed softly. Your aunt would be proud. At home, I opened my banking app. Freedom Fund, 9 months, because I saved even while furious. I sent Jessa my automatic transfer schedule and a simple budget template. She texted back. I started mine. 4 months and climbing. Good, I replied. Dependence is the quiet trap. Reduce it before you need to. At Sunward Ledger Group, my onboarding included something I had not heard at Lumenro: written success metrics for the first 90 days. Tamsin walked me through them and asked what resources I needed. When leadership puts expectations in writing, they cannot later pretend they were never discussed. That is governance in human form. I set my new direct deposit to rebuild my Freedom Fund even faster, and I updated beneficiaries on my own accounts after the estate mess. Work drama taught me career law. Family loss taught me life law. Both taught me the same lesson: paper beats promises. A few weeks into my new role, an old coworker messaged me. Kent tried to frame my departure as disloyalty. It backfired. People remembered my awards, my results, and the quiet revision of my review language. Leadership stopped using Kent as the face of fairness. He lost leverage the way bullies do when the target leaves and the lights come on. I did not celebrate loudly. I worked well, got paid well, and kept my records current. Revenge does not have to look like fire. Sometimes it looks like a woman with choices. You leave for a better role. The boss loses leverage and credibility.